Hi, hello, and welcome into my reselling channel. I'm Star. Today is Wednesday. I typically do some kind of motivational video on Wednesday or something about organization and routines and things like that. And today we are going to climb Mount Death Pile. So, if you're new to the channel, maybe you don't know that at the end of the summer, going into the fall, every year, I purposely overbuy a ton of inventory because I live in Pittsburgh. And as we saw from this winter, we had 3 feet of snow. We had negative 12-degree days. We had a lot of ice. We had wind chill. It's not a pleasant place to go outside thrifting in during the winter. I like to stay inside in my pajamas where it's warm and list all my wholesale buys. So I do stock up or build a hoard like a little squirrel with her nuts. I do really buy a lot in the fall, intending to work off of that going into the spring. And then I will back off on the amount of wholesale I'm buying. And I do go thrifting like once a month with my friends. And that can be really hard to do in the winter. I run the Pittsburgh chapter of the eBay seller circles, and we do try to go thrifting once a month. This is March. We haven't been since September. That's how our weather's been here. So it's a good idea to have that kind of a stockpile if you live somewhere where the weather might keep you from going thrifting. If you live somewhere where it's warm all year, you probably don't want to store as much or hoard as much, with the exception of the once in a lifetime buys. So you may be familiar with all the haul videos I've been doing, that I did several buyouts last year. I bought out 255 pounds from one friend. I bought out several whatnot shows from other friends. I overbought. But these once in a lifetime opportunities you don't want to pass up. So you can buy those even if it's going to put you over the top. And you should always have a little bit extra just in case, because you never know what's going to happen. You don't want to be in a situation where you don't have any inventory to list and no way to get more. Right before the shutdown, we had a big, like an attic full death pile. Keith was he had just decided he was getting ready to leave his full-time job. We had ramped this up to be full-time for both of us. But we decided that as we were getting ready for him to put in his 2 weeks notice and come home with me, that we were going to get rid of all of our death pile. We were going to list everything and not source anymore until all of that was gone. Then he would be home and we could start thrifting together. And then the world shut down. And we had no inventory, nothing. And so we had to get very creative real quick, real fast, very creative on how to get inventory. And that was kind of how my love of buying bulk, buying wholesale, buying out other resellers, that's how my love of that was born. Because then I realized, you mean I don't have to go out 6-7 days a week into the bins and all these different thrift stores? I can literally just sit in my house and have it come. That's my favorite way to source now. I found it out by accident, but I never should have been in a position where I didn't have anything. So before we get into tackling our death piles in this death pile challenge, I do want to preface this with, if you live somewhere where the weather can be inclement, you may want to source enough to keep you through that season. For me, that's winter. If you live somewhere like Florida, that's hurricane season. If you live somewhere with tornadoes or floods, accordingly to the weather in your area. And then I recommend you have some inventory, some kind of a stockpile on hand at all times, just because you never know what's going to happen. 2 weeks to a month, whatever that looks like for you. If you list 10 items a day and you want to have a month's worth of stuff, you got to have 3,000 extra pieces. If you list 5 items a day, that'd be 1,500 extra pieces. And that would be to have a month's worth. So you can have 2 weeks to a month's worth. That's okay, I feel like. And first in, first out, always first in, first out. A lot of people with really big death piles and a problem just keep buying more and more and more and bringing it in and putting it in the front of wherever they're storing the stuff, or on the top, front or the top. And the older stuff is getting pushed back and it's getting buried. You want to first in, first out, prioritizing seasonal and holiday. So have a good 2 weeks to a month worth of stuff. A little bit more if you're getting ready for inclement weather seasons. But you don't want to have Mount Deathmore. You don't want so much that nothing's getting listed. You have to learn when to call it. You have to learn when to say, I'm not thrifting. And so part of the reason I'm doing this video today is because I feel like I'm at that point. Now, I thrifted a whole bunch going into the winter in 2025. Sure did. But here we are in March. We are 15 days away from spring. Well, I'm filming this on March 5th, but you are watching it on the 11th. So we're 9 days away from spring when you're seeing this. And I've got some inventory, and I've got a lot of inventory. So I'm gonna be frank. Let's just be honest. I'm gonna tell you everything I have. It's not gonna sound like a lot to some people because I bought most of this death pile with purpose back in the fall with intent, and then just kind of went from there. So some people might be like, oh, your death pile is so small and cute, but you really shouldn't have that mentality. If you have more than I have, you got a problem and you need to start listing. Seriously. And that's why we're doing this video. So the 250-pound buyout was 5 ginormous boxes. I have 1.5 of those left. I have 4 relatively medium-sized boxes from my friend Jenny, who's 2 Whatnot shows I bought out. 2 thread up boxes. I think right around 50 to 60 pounds of jewelry. And then my recent 104 pieces of swimwear on another Whatnot show. And we haven't been thrifting, like I said, since September. However, I have 8 huge, like the lawn-sized garbage bags. I have 8 of those full in the very back of my SUV. Why are they in my SUV? Well, if you're new to the channel, I wash everything and before I bring it up to my office. So everything we source stays in the garage. If it comes in boxes, if it's wholesale, and stays in the garage until I wash it, dry it, and bring it up here. Unless it's new with tags, it can come up and I'll steam clean it. So the stuff I get from the thrift stores, I put in garbage bags because they don't give you bags anymore. And those stay in my car until I need that inventory. And I say, hey, Kate, bring that garbage bag in. And I wash it and everything happens. So that tells you that I haven't needed to pull any of the inventory in my SUV into the house to wash and dry, into the garage basement area of the house, because I've been working off all of my bulk buys from the fall. So now I feel like I'm really overwhelmed. I feel like I have too much stuff. And I do. I have a lot of inventory. It needs to get listed. It's already the spring, basically, in like a week and a half, which is where I would normally start thrifting again. So when I don't oversource, it's like I have all this inventory. Winter, that's what I live off of. And then come the spring, I'm like, oh, I need to get some more stuff. That didn't happen this year. I think it's because I had a couple of those once in a lifetime buys that I didn't want to turn down. I'm not going to turn down 250 pounds of clothing at the prices my friend gave me. I'm not going to turn down buying out Whatnot shows at $1 a piece or 10 swimsuits for $10. You know what I mean? So I just kept going. But now when I look at all the stuff and everything that's still in my car, I need to put a thrifting and sourcing ban on myself until I get this under control and kind of get a hold on how much inventory I have. And as I was thinking about that, I wondered how many of you have way too much shit, for lack of a better term. I know it's money. I know it's profit. I know it's inventory, and I know it's valuable. And when buyers buy it, to them, it's a treasure. But when it's just sitting around your garage and piled everywhere and you're not making any leeway, you're not doing yourself any favors. And so I was like, I wonder how many people that watch this channel also have way too much stuff and should be listing and not sourcing. So I thought we'd do this death pile challenge. It's not like a sincere challenge, but where I'm going to give you steps and things to do. It's just like a general death pile challenge in the sense that I'm saying, hey, let's all buckle down, take as many photographs and do as many listings as we can. You can build a bank. You can schedule your listings out. You don't have to list everything, but just do like this mass photography listing week, 2-week, month-long session. And then you can bank a lot of items and schedule them. That'll help you out in the long run. Before we thrift anymore, let's just work through what we got. So to get you motivated to go through your death pile and put a pause on your thrifting, I got some things I want to talk about your death pile to make it more exciting and encourage you to tackle it instead of avoiding it. So every item in your pile represents money that you've already spent and money that's waiting to be made. And so the best way I can put this to you, would you take a $100 bill, throw it on the floor of your house, the floor of your garage, wherever your death pile is? Would you put that $100 bill on the floor and step over it and walk around it and walk past it every day and just leave it there? Probably not. And that's what you're doing. You have this pile of money that you're just ignoring. You're walking around it. You're avoiding it. You don't want to deal with it. But that's money. You're ignoring money. And the hard part's already done. You already went sourcing. You already spent the money. All these items are already selected and chosen for you to finish the job. The problem with death piles is that they aren't just a physical challenge. They're very much mental. And I actually think the mental challenge that comes with death piles is a lot harder to overcome than the physicality. It's easy to walk over and say, I'm going to pick 10 items out and work on them. But you have to get to that point where you want to walk over and pull those 10 items out. So the mental block, I think, is a lot worse. You have to get past that first. And then once you're moving and your body's going, it's easy to keep pulling 10 out at a time and working on them. Every time you see that death pile, it's getting bigger and bigger. Whether it's actually physically getting bigger and you keep thrifting and adding to it, or it's just mentally becoming this bigger and bigger and bigger just challenge and just something you have to overcome. I know that a lot of times when we put off any task, the longer you put it off in your brain, the bigger that task becomes, the more insurmountable it seems, right? Have you ever put something off, just say a simple chore in your house, for weeks, months? It's insurmountable. I can't do it. It's so hard. And you finally write down and do it. And you're like, oh my gosh, that took like 10 minutes and it was super easy. That's kind of like how the death piles are. I think people get this mental block and they're just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And when you finally break down and do it, it's easy. Every time you see it, though, it's a reminder of how much work it is. I need to list that. I'm so behind. Oh my gosh, I'll never catch up. But if you can get that mindset turned into, it's so easy to just walk over there and pull out 10 items. And I can do that 10 times. And I can do that for 10 days in a row. And then I can do that for another 10 days in a row. So try to look at it like that. I'm going to walk over there. I'm going to pull 10 items out. That was easy. Let me list those. I can do it again. I can do it again. I can keep doing that. And I can do it for 10 days in a row. Progress beats any kind of perfection. Because you're never going to get anywhere if everything has to be perfect. I say this all the time. Sometimes good enough is good enough. and you just have to be fine with good enough. You don't need perfect lighting, perfect comps, perfect descriptions. Done is better than perfect. Don't put out mediocre listings. Don't put out crap. But don't spend 50 minutes, an hour, 2 hours researching one shirt. And I just put out a video yesterday on how to get really great photographs very simply, very easy. So you don't need everything to be perfect. You can, good enough is good enough. Good title, good keywords, good photos, and a decent enough comp. So that's something I think a lot of people struggle with. You don't need to be perfect. And then small tasks add up fast. So remember how I said you can go over and take 10 items out? And you can do that 10 times for 10 days. That adds up. 10 items a day for 7 days is 70 pieces out of your death pile. So if you do that for 4 weeks, that's 280 items. I don't know how big your death pile is, but that sure would make a dent in mine. And once you get that momentum going, it becomes more exciting. I feel like the insurmountable Mount Deathmore looms in all of our minds as this challenge that we will never overcome. We'll never be caught up. But if you just get started and you just get past that mental block and you realize just pulling out 10 items is so easy, you'll see the pile starts to get smaller. That's encouraging. That makes you motivated to do more, right? The pile's getting smaller. You're starting to photograph and list these items and realize what they're comping at and how much money you could potentially be making that was just sitting on the floor. And then when things start to sell, that is your epiphany, because nothing motivates a reseller like that. Cha-ching! So the goal of this death pile challenge, guys, is I just want you to focus on listing more and thrifting less until you get a stockpile of inventory that is manageable. Like I said in the beginning, everyone should have something. You should never list everything you have. You should always have some backup just in case. You never know what's going to happen. But you should not have an insurmountable, endless 15 storage units of supplies either, right? So the purpose of this is to list more and thrift less until you get that manageable 2 weeks to a month's worth of inventory. Get where you keep your unlisted inventory organized. So as you're going through it and you're making it smaller and smaller, organize it so you can do that first in, first out method. Wherever you keep it, in the garage, in a shed, in a storage unit, in your office, you want a system so that when you bring new stuff in, it can go behind the older stuff so that you're not putting it in front or on top of and burying it. So you can break your cycle. You can get that pile down small, organize it, and then you can start thrifting again and just replacing what you're listing. Once you get that down to just that 2 weeks to a month surplus, and you've got your system where you're going first in, first out, the new stuff comes in, this gets listed. The new stuff comes in, this gets listed. So that's all the purpose of this challenge is. Break your cycle, get your inventory onto a manageable level. If you have 2 weeks to a month's worth, or just enough to get through a few months of inclement weather, that's not a death pile. That's inventory. That's stock. But when you have enough to start 5 new eBays with your friends and you keep buying, that's a death pile. Stop it. Once you're listing consistently, your death pile will stop growing. Once you learn how to balance your thrifting and your death pile together, it will stop growing. Now, with the exceptions of how I got into my situation, I had already bought a lot to stock up for the winter, and then I had several once-in-a-lifetime opportunities that I'm not going to pass over. And I would recommend that for anybody, even if it means having an insurmountable Mount Deathmore for a few months. Don't pass up those really good deals either. But if you already have 3 storage units full, you might be the person that no matter how much once in a lifetime offer it is, you might need to pass on it and just say maybe next time. So kind of keep that in mind. Your death pile is not a failure. It's future inventory. It's a cycle you need to break. And it's going to be money. That's all it is. And I know a lot of resellers have taken to calling their death pile something different these days. If you want to, sure. I don't really see anything wrong with calling it a death pile. It does kind of have a negative connotation, but I think if it's something that you want to fix, if it's something you want to change, having that negative connotation kind of puts it in the mindset of, I need to change that, right? Things in your life that are positive aren't things that you're going to be wanting to tackle to change. They're great. They're positive. Things with kind of a negative connotation are things you may want to change. So I don't see anything wrong with calling it a death pile. That makes me want to get rid of it. And then just say, hey, I have 2 weeks worth of inventory. So list more, thrift less, get it manageable, get it done, 10 items at a time. It's that easy. I'll be doing it with you. Now, am I going to go to the thrift store? Yes. I do run the Pittsburgh eBay seller circles, and I am the community leader, and we do go to the thrift store once a month. And, you know, the other members, we haven't been able to go since September, and they are chomping at the bit. And I'm sure the weather will be nice enough in March and everyone will want to go. But will I go and fill up 2 or 3 more garbage bags on 99-cent day when I go with them? Probably not. I'll look and be choosy and just get some really good stuff if it's there. If not, I may help one of my friends that goes has a very similar business model to me, so maybe I'll just fill up a cart for her. Just go to have fun and thrift with my girls and hang out. We go to Aldi's when we're done too. So after we're done thrifting, we go shopping together. We're kind of nerdy, but we have a good time. So I'll still be going with them, but I will just be going with the mindset of I don't need to fill up my cart and bring a ton of stuff home. I'm just here to find the really good bolos until my death pile is manageable, and then I can go with them once a month and fill up my cart. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns about anything I said in this video, let me know down below. Hopefully this will help you get motivated to tackle your Mount Death more and get it into a more manageable situation for yourself. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe because it helps me feed my hungry hippos. And I will see you in the next one.